Overlooked and ignored letters from Agnes Smith and her daughter Josephine bring into question the idea that Agnes Smith was married or sealed to Joseph Smith. The question of, was Agnes married to Joseph Smith, is typically addressed by the following sources. 1. A letter from Lucy Walker to Joseph F. Smith. 2. A journal entry by Brigham Young in 1842. 3. John C. Bennet's History of the Saints. And 4. Mary Frost's Temple Lot testimony. What is typically not addressed are the letters from Agnes Smith and Josephine. Agnes Smith's letters show that Agnes Smith strongly disbelieved in polygamy, but apparently has faith in Joseph Smith and the Restoration, while Josephine's letters show that Josephine questions if Joseph Smith ever practiced polygamy. Several of Josephine's letters are written on the same sheet of paper, side by side Agnes's own words, with proof that Agnes was fully aware of Josephine's claims. One letter that shows Agnes's disgust towards practitioners of polygamy, but faith in Joseph Smith and Josephine's questioning if Joseph Smith practiced polygamy was on June 10, 1860, where side by side they write, From Agnes, I do not believe in oppression, in tyranny, in bloodshed, and murder, and neither in the plurality. I must say that I have tried hard to believe that it was right to have more wives than one, but I could never get a witness, but always to the contrary. And from Josephine, I am well and in good spirits, spending the day Sunday with Mother. We have been thinking a great deal about you and all of our friends and relatives in Utah. If Joseph Smith brought forth this system of polygamy, pertinent letters freely available on the internet that cover the time up through Agnes's death are as follows, and read in full. As these letters are read, please consider the following 2 questions. 1. Why does Josephine constantly refer to Joseph Smith's polygamy in terms of a question? 2. If Agnes Smith is so against polygamy, why does she maintain a testimony of Joseph Smith and the Restoration? July 22nd, 1857, Josephine and Agnes to Joseph F. Smith. Los Angeles, July 22nd, 1857. Dear Cousin Joe, I received your letter dated June 2nd, and this is from Josephine writing, yesterday, and hasten to reply by return steamer, lest I be charged with neglect again. And to own up like a man, the charge is not certainly without foundation. Yet did you know how hard I had to study and how fully occupied my time was with my summer? And you would, I am sure, give over any hard thoughts that you might now entertain on the subject. To convince you that I must study hard, I will present you with my school hours performances. You know, when I came to this place 2 years ago, I had never looked in grammar, biography, or arithmetic, was a great deal poorer writer than I am now, was deficient in spelling or any of the rules of composition. You must perceive that I have worked hard when I tell you my studies now. My everyday morning lessons in regular order are spelling, geography, grammar, philosophy, history, Willard's Universal, and mental arithmetic. 3 hours to get by heart and recite those. Keep a person pretty well employed, Joe. In the afternoon I have chemistry, physiology, rhetoric, half an hour writing, then 15 minutes dictation, and 1 hour's. Is not that enough to tire and weigh down one's brains? You better believe, when night comes, I am rather too tired to feel like writing any kind of an entertaining letter. It is very seldom I get to bed before midnight, on account of my studies, for it is impossible to get 4 pages of that hard universal history by heart in school. But enough of this. How is it, cousin, that you have written so many letters, and I have received so few of them? 3 is the amount that I have received. I have written 3 myself. If you can solve the enigma, it is more than I can do. You are very... Joseph, in relation to the terms of talent, superiority, etc., etc., but I do not know why you should speak to me particularly in the manner you have done. Although I am now known throughout California as the Los Angeles poetess, Agnes Smith, niece of the prophet, yet I have not as yet been very much flattered, nor pleased in having the terms of talented, etc., applied to me. If I have won myself a name, Joe, Yet I am not to be praised for it. All honor is due to him who gave me the power and abilities to be able to write. Even those in this place who are averse to Mormonism have been heard to remark that whether Joseph Smith was a man of God or not, they could not tell. But one thing was sure, that God had bestowed great genius upon the Smith family. So if I have contributed to gaining even that much of an opinion in favor of our family and Mormonism, I have at least done no harm, and may have done some good. I will have a great many musings to tell you when you come in connection with my poetry. The name of Ina as the author of Lines to the Unknown is pretty widely spread. It is too long a story to write, however, so I'll reserve it for your ear when we meet again. You speak truly, Joe, when you say that the highest blood in the world flows in our veins. I am proud of it, though not vainly so, and I thank God that he has bestowed upon us the name of blood of his chosen ones. But it is getting very late, Joe, and I must not write so lengthy. I didn't go to bed last night till 2 o'clock, and now again it is. Why is it John, Jerusha, Sarah, nor Martha Ann never write? I have written more than 20 letters in the last 2 years, and never received even a word in answer. They have blotted their California relatives out of their hearts and memory, I presume. But if they have, the day will come, Joe, when they will regret it from the bottom of their hearts. Although in California we have not forgotten the existence of God or his church, and he who looketh at the hearts of his children can best judge of their relative merits. We can worship God and love his blessed Son as well here as we could anywhere else, and a simple heartfelt prayer offered up in the private of my own room is just as acceptable to him as it would be were it offered up in the tabernacle of Salt Lake City. That is my opinion. Best more on the subject another time. Joe, I have this evening been receiving a copy of a verse of mine and an answer written to it from Marysville, and also have been correcting a proof sheet of another piece for Saturday's Star, which the editor brought up for me to correct. I wish you were here to see them. They are to a girl friend of mine who has gone to the States, Indiana, recently. But I must stop and will finish tomorrow night. I am so weary. Thursday evening. Well, cousin, I have got to writing to you again, and I'm going to talk serious to you now. Why is it that you are so anxious for us to leave Cal and go to Salt Lake? Do you think that we are totally lost because we are living here? I would just as well be here as in Deseret. Thank God I have a little common sense left. And as long as I have one particle, I will not go back there, Joseph. Joseph, if you could read and hear some of the stories I do, and had one iota of the true feelings of justice and mercy within your heart, they would make your blood run cold. Heavens, what is it coming to? Are these harems going to be exactly the same as the whoredoms? If they are, you'll never get me to aught to do with it. Take your Book of Mormon and read it through carefully, Joe, and ponder as you read. See what that says. That comes out in plain words against it. And now it came to pass that Zeniff conferred the kingdom upon Noah, one of his sons. Therefore Noah began to reign in his stead, and he did not walk in the ways of his father. For behold, he did not keep the commandments of God, but did walk after the desires of his own heart. And he had many wives and concubines, and did cause his people to commit sins, and do that which was abominable in the sight of the Lord. Book of Mosiah, chapters 11, 1-2. Is polygamy not spoken of as a crime there? Did not Uncle Joseph himself say that it was not commanded him, but was permitted him? What did not bring peace and happiness was not of God. Does that bring happiness or peace? No, Cousin Joe. No, cousin, you know as well as I that it does not. You have not lived at Salt Lake in the very midst of it, and not have known how unhappy were those who were connected with it. And if you were asked before the bar of God if that brought happiness, you could not with truth say it did. This you know, is it right for a girl of 15 and even 16 to marry a man of 50 or 60? Can there be any love there? And has not God willed a woman to love, honor, and obey her husband? And can it be right thus to pledge false vows at this altar in perfect mocking of all that is good and pure and God's most holy laws? I think I see myself vowing to love and honor some old driveling idiot of 60, to be taken into his harem, and enjoy the pleasure of being his favorite sultana for an hour, and then thrown aside, whilst my godly husband is out sparking another girl, in hopes of getting another victim to his despotic power. Pleasant prospect, I must say, And this, Joe, this is of God, is it? No, never, never, never. You may preach, you may talk to me, from now to eternity, but you never will make me believe that polygamy is true. Uncle Joseph had been heard to say by thousands that God promised him that if he committed no sin, that he should live even to the coming of Christ. If he sinned at all, and I do not know whether he did or not, but if he did, it was in polygamy. Listen to the Book of Mormon again. And now I make an end of speaking unto you concerning this pride. And were it not that I must speak unto you concerning a grosser crime, my heart would rejoice exceedingly because of you. But the word of God burdened me because of your grosser crimes. For behold, thus saith the Lord, this people begin to wax in iniquity. They understand not the Scriptures, for they seek to excuse themselves in committing whoredoms, because of the things which are written concerning David and Solomon his son. Behold, David and Solomon had many wives and concubines, which thing was abominable before me, saith the Lord. Wherefore thus saith the Lord, I have led this people forth out of the land of Jerusalem, by the power of mine arm, that I might raise up unto me a righteous branch from the fruit of the loins of Joseph. Wherefore I, the Lord God, will not suffer that this people shall do like unto them of old. Wherefore, O my brethren, hear me, and hearken to the word of the Lord. For there shall not any man among you have, save it be one wife, and concubines he shall have none. For I, the Lord God, delight in the chastity of women, and whoredoms are an abomination before me. Thus saith the Lord of hosts. Wherefore this people shall keep my commandments, saith the Lord of hosts, or cursed be the law for their sakes. For if I will, saith the Lord of hosts, raise up a seed unto me, I will command my people, otherwise they shall hearken unto these things. For behold, I, the Lord, have seen the sorrow, and heard the mourning of the daughters of my people, which I have led out of the land of Jerusalem, yea, and in all the lands of my people, because of the wickedness and abominations of their husbands. And I will not suffer, saith the Lord of hosts, that the cries of their fair daughters of this people, which I have led out of the land of Jerusalem, shall come up unto me against the men of my people. For they shall not lead away captive the daughters of my people because of their tenderness, save I shall visit them with a sore curse, even unto destruction. For they shall not commit whoredoms like them of old, saith the Lord of hosts. Now, Joseph, what can you say to that? If you don't believe that it is in there, go and search the book through, and you will find that it is. I don't believe in polygamy, and never will, and instead of going back to Salt Lake, would rather go to Nauvoo or Jackson County. I want you to write a long letter and tell me just what you think in regard to it. Speak freely and without reserve, as I have done. There are other things that I would wish to touch upon, but I am very weary, and it is nearly 12. Do not be offended, Joe, by anything I may have said, for I assure you, I have no wish to hurt your feelings or anything of the kind. Did you hear of Parley Pratt's death? He was killed by Mr. McLean, the husband of Miss McLean of San Francisco, that was so zealous in the cause. You recollect her, don't you? I can only give you the outlines of the case. Mr. McLean sent her children to the States. She went after them, could not get them, and went to Salt Lake, where she was sealed to Parley. She then went with him to the States again, succeeded in getting her children, and was on the eve of starting for Deseret again when she heard her husband was there to try to kill Parley P. Pratt. And sure enough he did, and then proceeded after his wife to bring her back to a madhouse. I don't know whether he succeeded in getting her or not. The papers said no more about it up to the latest date. Won't you give me Cousin Susan's address? I want to write her. Tell me exactly how to direct my letters. Aggie intends riding this steamer. Mother is having poor health indeed, and is growing old fast. She sends her love to you. Remember me to W. Clough, and all who may inquire for me. Tell WWC that Louis Pratt was married to John this 4th of July. We have been up to San Bernardino twice this year, and spent a month very pleasantly. But for the present, goodbye, Joe, and may God bless. Ever your true friend and cousin, Josephine D. Smith. Write soon as possible, and with a long letter, Ina. And now, from Agnes. My dear nephew, I will try and write you a few lines. We were truly glad to hear from you, and that you are enjoying yourself as well as you are. We all want to behold you again here with us once more. There's not many of us left, Joseph, and the greatest prayer of my heart is that the Smith family one and all may be gathered together at one place once more. Would not there be rejoicing, Joseph? Yes, yes, both in heaven and on earth. My heart feels the sweetness of it. And who is to bring it about but yourself and John and Uncle Joseph's children? We are all waiting for you, and hundreds that I could name are looking for Joseph to take his place. But we must wait God's own time, and pray that it may be short. Joseph, I want you to bring me some pretty shells. Also tell William Cleft to bring me some. Tell him that we do not forget him, nor any of you. Take care of yourself, Joseph. Your Aunt Agnes. Joseph, you must not think hard of Agnes, daughter, for she could not write. The following quote should be addressed, as I have seen the quote. It was not commanded him, but was permitted him, appearing by other authors in isolation. From the surrounding text, it is clear that Josephine addressed the idea that Joseph Smith originated polygamy as a question, and that she was decisively against the practice. The meaning of the quotation is left to the listener, but with the full context of the surrounding text. Okay, and now a letter from June 10th, 1860, from Agnes and Josephine to Edwin and Mary. Los Angeles, June 10th, 1860. Dear Edwin and Mary, and this is Agnes writing, right? I received your letter with one from Priscilla and Miss Keat. I was glad to hear from you again, and glad to hear that you were prospering in some of the things, but sorry to hear of poor Mary Ann's sickness and suffering, for I know that she must have suffered more than death, and I hope that she may never have to suffer the like again. Be kind to her, Edwin, and always bear in mind her great sufferings, for she is a noble little woman. You never could find another one like her. How I would like to see you all once more, especially your dear little children. But I don't know whether that will ever be or not. There is one thing sure, Edwin. I never shall return to the lake. I suppose that you would like for me to write you just what I believe and how I feel, and I'm going to do so. You may ask, do I believe Mormonism? I do. I believe the Book of Mormon. I believe the Covenants book. I believe the Bible. If we believe these things and do our best to fulfill what is written therein, I do not think that we need to fear to meet our God and bring our children up to worship their Creator, not to worship mortal man that is not any better than they are, not half so good, Edwin. I do not believe in oppression, in tyranny, in bloodshed, in murder, and neither in the plurality. I must say that I have tried hard to believe that it was right to have more wives than one, but I could never get a witness, but always to the contrary. I have been looking for many years for a change in the church, that God in his own due time would cause the true one to step forth and lead his people, which is now the case. Joseph has come forth to set the people free and to deliver them from bondage and tyranny. How I long to see them as I have once seen them. It would almost be a heaven on earth. Whether it will be my lot to join them once more, I know not. But I pray that God in his great wisdom will order it so that all of mine may be gathered back to our old homes to meet, and there lay our weary bones, Edwin. How I wish that I could converse with you and many concerning the church. I feel that a man of your good sense cannot be wholly blinded. As regards the state of things in Utah, I cannot believe that you are willing to end your days in Utah and bring up your dear children in ignorance and superstition. Edwin, bring them away, where they can feel that they are free-born American citizens and grow up noble men and women on the earth, where they feel that they have a right to think, to act, to understand for themselves. You had better come this way than to stay where you are. You could make a good living here, or in San Bernardino. It is a beautiful place, as it is being a hell out here, as Brigham used to say. I find it quite the reverse, and I think that I am a far better judge than he is, or ever can be. There's just as good people here as ever I wish to live with. There is no one here that despises us, because that we are Mormons. But we go into the highest circles of society that there is on the place, and there is plenty of my old in the church, and often meet and enjoy ourselves together, but San Bernardino seems the most like Nauvoo of any place. I am so happy when I am there. I expect to go up and spend the 4th of July. The boys with me, they are my escort, and they are very good ones. I wish you could see what great boys they are. Don Carlos got shot last January, pretty bad. Had to lay in bed for nearly 3 months, but he is all right now. He was not to blame at all. He was shot while out gunning accidentally by another. Boy, the girls are well and doing well and happy and content. Josephine is spending the day with me and says that she will write some in my letter. Well, my children, Josephine has written to you, and you must not be offended with her. She said to me while writing, Mother, I feel so strange I cannot guide my pen. I believe my father is writing for me. I don't know what of Ine, as we call her. She foretells many things. I often think of her blessing, how they are fulfilling. Joseph and Ine, when he was here, had many counsel about Mormonism. We have wrote to Aunt Emma and Joseph, and when we get an answer, we will write you again. I have written to Priscilla. I want you to read her letter, and let her read this. Give my love and respect to Miss Heat. Please let her read your letter, for I write it to all of you. I was glad to hear from her and family, and I wish that they were anywhere but at the lake. But perhaps you don't feel as we do as regards matters and things. But indeed, we wish you all well, and can't help wishing that you were all here with us. For I know that we could take a great deal of tales together. I don't know as you will be able to read my scribbling, Edwin, for poor mother is getting quite blind and looking very old. But I think that if you and family and Priscilla and all of my relatives and all the good ones was out of Utah, that I should young again. Edwin, I hear since I wrote this that Priscilla is coming out here. If she has started, I wish you to get the letter that I have sent to her and keep it, read it. Well, my dear children and friends, goodbye, and may God bless you in all things you need, is the prayer of Mother. Kiss all the children for me. God bless them. Agnes M. Pickett. And now on the same letter, Josephine writes a little bit. My dear friend, Edwin and Mary Ann, I have asked the privilege of writing a little in Mother's letter. So she has left this side of the sheet for me to fill up in the best way that I can, which I am afraid will be a very poor one. Still, the best of us can do is try, and so I will do what I can. I am well and in good spirits, spending the day Sunday with Mother. We have been thinking a great deal about you and all our friends and relatives in Utah, lately especially since we heard to a certainty that Cousin Joseph of Nauvoo was going to take the leadership of the church. And oh, Edwin, how I wish you were here, only here, at any rate, out of Salt Lake. I am certain that were you to express our feelings truly and without restraints, that you would rather be with the sons of the prophet Joseph Smith than where you are now. And under such a government, Edwin, how can you be so blind? Having ears ye hear not, and eyes yet ye do not see? Is it possible that you know nothing of the crime which are committed daily, aye, hourly in your midst? Crimes which Satan himself would hush to own, and which are done in the name of the great Jehovah, under the saintly garb of piety. How can you stay there with your pure, innocent lambs, which the good God has committed to your care, to have their young minds familiarized with such infamy, stilled to all impulses of mercy and righteousness, to have their little feet wandering daily farther and farther away from the path which leadeth to the fold of the Holy Shepherd? Better, far better would it be that they were taken again to the arms of him who said, Suffer little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for of such is the kingdom of heaven. I know you what you will say when you read this letter, that I am lost and have the wrong spirit. I have been told so by others in the valley, but you are wrong. Will be lost unless ye flee from the wrath to come. In the name of the God and the Savior that you pretend to worship, leave that place, Edwin. I do not believe that it is I who writes this. I have no influence over my hand, and I am faint while I pen this. I write as if by some inward prompting, which I cannot control. I am a Mormon, in all but Salt Lake Mormonism, and woe unto you if you do not leave it. Polygamy, murder are abroad in your lands and in your households. The Bible, the Book of Mormon, and the covenants is all against it. What is there that justifies it? Nothing, in heaven nor on earth. If Joseph Smith brought forth this system of polygamy, he sinned, and he paid the penalty. Take warning. I have spoken my soul's belief unto you. Think of me what you will, and let God judge between us. Receive my love and remembrance, and remember me to my cousins, and to Miss Keats, Aggie also wished to be remembered. Please answer my letter and enclose it in Mother's. God bless you, my brother and sister, both now and forever. Your ever-loving friend, Josephine Carsley. The following letters from Josephine appear after Agnes Smith dies. After her death, Josephine continues to be decisively against polygamy and addresses Joseph Smith's polygamy in terms of a question. This eliminates the idea that Agnes Smith had a deathbed confession. The listener should also be aware of the full context of these letters, as they appear in several other authors' sources and may be misquoted. It is left to the listener to compare the full letter to the sources as quoted by other authors. July 31st, 1914. Dear Joseph, if I had not been so wretchedly sick and worried, you would be justified in vexation toward me for your letter, and its enclosed kind remembrance were sent on the 28th instead. First, I want to thank you not alone for this, but for all your kindness. You are not the only one, but many that I failed to respond on time. I have too much to do, and too little strength to do all I should. I could this year keep 2 secretaries busy, and I have not any. Miss L.H. Lonnie was here 2 days ago with a question of not writing to Mary Walker and her daughter Dosiah. The sketch which you enclosed I thank you for. I was familiar with the first portion of it, but I've read all of it carefully. You know, Joseph, there is but one portion of the church creed upon which we diverge. You are honest in your belief, and I in mine. Your own father condemned it in the presence of Joseph, and my father and mother, and in the most emphatic terms. I have begged you to talk with me, but you seldom come to the city, and you never come to me alone. I suppose you would be angry with me, and with my dear dead mother, if I should tell you what I ought to tell. I am sorry Martha could not come here when so near. She would have been most welcome to my home, and in my heart, as well as yourself she has ever been. My love to her and all of you that remain. There are very few. God bless you, and help us all. Josephine. All right, here is another letter, February 18, 1917, from Ina to Joseph F. Smith. Not sharing all the letters. I'm not reading the letters from Joseph F. Smith. Joseph F. Smith and Ina, it is interesting to note that they maintain this relationship for all these years. This letter is right before Joseph F. Smith dies, and they differ on polygamy and the church, but they still are friends, and they still correspond through this whole time, and they still seem to care for each other. Okay, so here's the letter. February 18, 1917. It was not kind of you, Joseph dear. In fact, without my knowledge and permission, I do not think you had the right. I did not give the books for publicity. It was a personal matter. The rack could not force me to a word or deed to injure you. Yet, knowing how I feel about these matters at once, this book, published 23 years ago, is made the subject of a long personal notice. In 1907, when something of the same kind occurred, I wrote you at length giving my point of view, its causes, and how deeply I feel these matters because of the attitude of the world in which I live with regard to them, and the consequent suffering entailed upon me. And you wrote that you never desired to hurt me in any way. Why then this? It does you no good, and it impairs me most cruelly. You do not bring William's daughters into the limelight. Why me? I have been with the church people just 2½ years. I was 10 when we came away, and I have lived outside 65 years. You do not consider that. I have wanted to tell you what my mother told me, but you give me no chance, that you might understand why I cannot think as you do, though I wholly respect and consider your side. To be crucified for a faith in which you believe is to be blessed, to be crucified for one in which you do not believe is to be crucified. This is written from my bed of long sickness, not in anger, but in sorrow and failure to understand. Josephine. Through the words of Agnes Smith and her daughter Josephine, it is unlikely Agnes Smith was married to Joseph Smith. Agnes Smith's testimony of Joseph Smith and the disgust toward those teaching polygamy is evidence that she did not believe Joseph Smith taught polygamy. We saw that Josephine's words are written alongside and discussed with Agnes herself. Josephine addressed Joseph Smith's polygamy as a question, showing that she did not have first or second-hand knowledge from her mother that Joseph Smith practiced polygamy, knowledge she would likely have if Joseph Smith married Agnes. In light of what Agnes and Josephine believed about polygamy, we will now address the other sources that are commonly cited about Joseph's claimed marriage to Agnes. A letter from Lucy Walker to Joseph Smith makes the claim that Agnes told Josephine, who much later told Lucy, that Agnes believed Joseph Smith had other wives. The premise of the letter is quickly and decisively discredited by the fact that we have shown that Josephine did not have any first or second-hand knowledge that Joseph Smith practiced polygamy. The third-hand knowledge that Lucy is citing is thus brought into question. The letter is left to the listener to read. The next source that I'm going to go over is Brigham Young's journal entry from 1842, and I'm going to show how that fits into the story. First, I have to share two pieces of information. The first is that in the summer of 1841, Don Carlos dies and leaves Agnes with 3 children from the ages from 5 to 0. Not only that, but when Don Carlos dies, Agnes Smith and Don Carlos were trying to settle some financial situation that they were in, where they were trying to offload some debts from Kirtland and to get into a house in Nauvoo. And so Agnes is left with all of this baggage in the summer of 1841. She was left all alone, and she ends up having to rely on her extended family quite a bit. And you see Agnes meeting with Joseph Smith, and Joseph Smith putting an ad in the newspaper to try to get people to pay their dues for the printing business that they were involved in, and as well as writing a letter to Granger to help settle her debts from Kirtland. The next piece of information that you need to understand is that Brigham Young is made a Mason the same day that he makes the journal entry that we will look at. This is important because you'll see that the journal entry is written in Masonic cipher, and this means that Brigham Young learns Masonic cipher on that very day, which means that it's a new novel thing for him. It's something kind of cool and interesting, and he wants to try it out. So then, on January 6th, 1842, Brigham Young writes this entry in Masonic cipher. He writes, "I was taken into the lodge. J. Smith saw Agnes. January 6, 1842. Now I'm going to give you 2 possibilities of what this journal entry means. The first is that it could mean just what it says, that Joseph Smith saw Agnes on that day, that Brigham Young learned how to write in Masonic cipher, and Agnes is there, and Brigham Young records that in his journal. Number 2, that SAW stands for sealed and wed. So Joseph Smith sealed and wed Agnes. But he did not seal and wed Agnes to himself. He sealed and wed Agnes to Don Carlos. The idea that because it is written in Masonic cipher suggests Brigham Young is hiding a clandestine marriage. This narrative is brought into question by the fact that the entry in Masonic cipher is correlated to the fact that Brigham Young just learns how to write in cipher that day, and that no other sealings or journal entries in Brigham Young's journal show up in Masonic cipher. The narrative is also brought into question by Agnes and Josephine's letters previously read. John C. Bennet's History of the Saints makes the following claim. But I desist. In concluding this subject, however, I will semi-state 2 or more cases among the vast number where Joe Smith was privately married to his spiritual wives. In the case of Miss A. S. by Apostle Brigham Young, and in that of Miss L. B. by Elder Joseph Bates Noble, then there are the cases of Miss B., Miss D., Miss S., Miss G., Miss B., etc., etc. John C. Bennet is using a rumor started by members promoting spiritual wifery in the spring of 1842. The rumor appears in a complaint against Clarissa Marvel in March of 1842, and was disputed by both Agnes herself and Clarissa. An 1842 letter from Joseph Smith to the Relief Society, we see the state of the church that produces the rumor John C. Bennet cites. In this letter, we see both the problem of polygamy in the church and decisive evidence that men are using Joseph Smith's name to promote spiritual wifery. In the week surrounding this letter, we see Agnes Smith disputing the rumor and a statement by Clarissa also disputing the rumor. The 1842 letter is as follows, and read in its entirety. March 31st, 1842. To the Honorable President of the Female Relief Society of Nauvoo, greeting. Can the Female Relief Society of Nauvoo be trusted with some important matters that ought actually to belong to them to see to, which men have been under the necessity of seeing to their chagrin and mortification, in order to prevent iniquitous characters from carrying their iniquity into effect, such as, for instance, a man who may be aspiring after power and authority, and yet without principle, regardless of God, man, or the devil, or the interest or welfare of man, or the virtue of or innocence of women. Shall the credulity, good faith, and steadfast feelings of our sisters for the cause of God or truth be imposed upon by believing such men, because they say they have authority from Joseph or the first presidency or any other presidency of the church, and thus with a lie in their mouth deceive and debauch the innocent under the assumption that they are authorized from these sources? May God forbid. A knowledge of such things have come to our ears. We improve this favorable opportunity, wherein so goodly a number of you may be informed that no such authority ever has, ever can, or ever will be given to any man. And if any man has been guilty of any such thing, let him be treated with utter contempt, and let the curse of God fall on his head, and let him be turned out of society as unworthy of a place among men, and denounced as the blackest and the most unprincipled wretch, and finally let him be damned. We have been informed that some unprincipled men, whose names we will not mention at present, have been guilty of such crimes. We do not mention their names, not knowing but what there may be some among you who are not sufficiently skilled in masonry as to keep a secret. Therefore suffice it to say, there are those, and we therefore warn you and forewarn you in the name of the Lord to check and destroy any faith that any innocent person may have in any such character. For we do not want anyone to believe anything as coming from us, contrary to the old established morals and virtues and scriptural laws, regulating the habits, customs, and conduct of society. And all persons pretending to be authorized by us or having any permit or sanction from us are and will be liars and base impostors, and you are authorized on the very first intimation of the kind to denounce them as such, and shun them as the flying fiery serpent, whether they are prophets, seers, or revelators, patriarchs, 12 apostles, elders, priests, mayors, generals, city councilors, aldermen, marshals, police, lord mayors, or the devil, are all alike culpable, and shall be damned for such evil practices. And if you yourselves adhere to anything, you shall also be damned. Now, beloved sisters, do not believe for a moment that we wish to impose upon you. We actually do know that such things have existed in the church, and are sorry to say that we are obliged to make mention of any such thing, and we want to put to them. And we desire you to do your part, and we will do ours. For we wish to keep commandments of God in all things, as given directly from heaven to us, living by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord. May God add his blessings upon your heads, and lead you in all paths of virtue, piety, and peace, that you may be an ornament unto those to whom you belong, and rise up and crown them with honor. And by so doing you shall be crowned with honor in heaven, and shall sit upon thrones, judging those over whom you are placed in authority, and shall be judged of God for all the responsibilities that be conferred upon you. At a more convenient and appropriate season we will give you further information upon this subject. Let this epistle be had as a private matter in your society, and then we shall learn whether you are good Masons. We are your humble servants in the bonds of the newer and everlasting covenants, signed by Wiliam Smith, Joseph Smith, President of the President of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Heber C. Kimball, Willard Richards, Vincent Knights, Brigham Young, President of the Quorum of the 12. P.S. If the Lord be God, serve him. But if Baal, then serve him. One interesting tidbit is that there is also a draft letter of this letter before it goes to the Relief Society. And in that letter, it has the statement, "Unless it be a message delivered to you by our own mouth, by actual revelation and commandment." And this statement is struck from the final letter that goes to the Relief Society. And that is very powerful, because that even if it comes from Joseph Smith or Brigham or whoever, it is not permitted. The last postscript is also interesting. It says, "If the Lord be God, serve him. But if Baal, then serve him." This is a direct quote from 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 21. "And Elijah came unto all the people and said, How long halt ye between two opinions? If the Lord be God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. And the people answered him not a word." So this postscript really lays down the line that this is a choice. This problem that they have is a choice between God or between serving Baal, and that they get to decide. Following the reading of that letter to the Relief Society, a statement from Clarissa Marvel was read, refuting the rumors surrounding Joseph Smith and Agnes. Certificate, 2nd April 1842. Copy of a certificate, which was also read before the Society at the same time that the preceding epistle was presented. This is to certify that I never have at any time or place seen or heard anything improper or invirtuous in the conduct or conversation of either President Smith or Miss Agnes Smith. I also certify that I have never reported anything derogatory to the characters of either of them. Signed, Clarissa Marvel, her mark. In a March 1842 Relief Society meeting, the rumor made known by Clarissa Marvel is refuted, a discussion in which Agnes Smith takes part. Part of the meeting notes are as follows. Relief Society Minutes, March 24th, 1842. President E. Smith rose and read from the Book of Records the proceeding of the first meeting of the Society. She then proceeded to read to the honorable body a report wherein Clarissa Marvel was accused of a scandalous falsehoods on the character of President Joseph Smith without the least provocation. Praying that they would in wisdom adopt some plan to bring her to repentance, she said presumed that most of the Society knew more about Clarissa Marvel than herself. Miss Agnes Smith said Clarissa Marvel had lived with her nearly a year. She had seen nothing amiss of her. Counselor Elizabeth Ann Whitney proposed that someone be appointed to go and labor with her, and if possible reform her. Moved and carried that Miss Markham be one to go and converse with C. Marvel. Miss Markham objected on the ground that she was unacquainted with the circumstances. President Smith said that would make no difference. She could attend to it, that it should be done in a private manner, with great prudence. Miss Pres continued by saying that we intend to look into the morals of each other and watch over each other, that she intends to walk circumspectly and to shun the appearance of evil. All are required to be very careful in their words and actions at all times. Said she believed Clarissa Marvel might be reformed. Miss Billings inquired if C.M. had parents. President Smith said she has no parents. She is under our care and observation. She needs friends. From the letters and statements that we have previously read, it is likely that a rumor was started by those practitioners of spiritual wifery. The rumor probably went something like this. Have you heard that Agnes Smith is married to Joseph Smith as a spiritual wife? That rumor or statement is then used to try to entangle more women in spiritual wifery. If the statement of Joseph Smith, the Relief Society, or Agnes Smith, or Clarissa aren't enough, we should also question John C. Bennet's trustworthiness. Here is the forged letter previously mentioned that brings into question John C. Bennet's trustworthiness, and at the same time shows men using Joseph Smith's name to promote their cause. To whom it may concern, this is to certify that John C. Bennet, having promised me under a most solemn oath this day that he will faithfully preserve the within revelation and hand it over to an authorized agent of the church, should he survive me, I have communicated to him the full pattern, in whole and in part, as within alluded to. with the names of the men whom I desire to fill the alternate stations, etc., etc., and he has more faithfully to confer all the degrees or enable some other persons to do so. As I have shown him both the pattern and the names, it is my desire that the full organization should take place as soon after my decease as practical, given under my command, under my hand, and seal the day and year above written. Joseph Smith. The next and final source is Mary Ann West's Temple Lot testimony from 1892. And here is what her testimony reads in terms of Agnes Smith. Question: state who Agnes Smith was. Answer: I think I have stated that. She was the wife of Don Carlos Smith. Question: whose wife was she at the time that you lived with her? Answer: she was Joseph Smith's wife. Question: well, how do you know what? Counsel for the plaintiff objects to the question asked to witness on the grounds and for the reason that it is incompetent and immaterial and not proper redirect examination. Question: now, Miss West, you may answer the question. Answer: she was told me herself she was her husband. She said she wished her to marry Joseph, and she did so. Question: well, what did Agnes Smith tell you about it? Answer: she did not tell me anything more than I have told you. Question: where is Agnes Smith now? Answer: in her grave. Question: was she in polygamy too? Answer: she was. Question: how do you know she was? Answer: well, that is what she told me. Question: who did she marry? Answer: Joseph Smith. Now I'm going to show you how this all fits together by going over some of the inconsistencies in her Temple Lot testimony. The first inconsistency was the question: was she in polygamy too? Answer: she was. And this is in contradiction to the words of Agnes Smith and her daughter Josephine, as we have previously read. What I'm going to show is that there are some inconsistencies in Mary Frost's testimony that seem to indicate that she was involved in spiritual wifery in Nauvoo. So the first curious piece in her testimony is that Mary marries Wiliam Smith, but only knows him for one day and seems to know nothing else about him. And here is the testimony. Question: did you live with him 2 weeks? Answer: I could not say. Question: did you live with him 1 week? Answer: I can't tell you. Question: you can't say how long you lived with him? Answer: no, sir. Question: did you ever room with him? Answer: I did. Question: you know that? Answer: yes, sir. Question: now how many nights did you room with him? Answer: I don't remember. Question: well, was it 2 or 5 nights? Answer: I don't remember. Question: was it 1 night? Answer: yes, sir. You roomed with him 1 night? Answer: yes, sir. Question: you are positive of that? Answer: yes, sir. Question: when was that? Answer: after we were married. Question: you are positive that it was not before? Answer: yes, sir. Question: and you swore positively that you roomed with Wiliam B. Smith as his wife 1 night, but you can't say whether it was 5 nights or 2 nights? Answer: yes, sir. I know I did 1 night, and I can't say how many more. Question: well, will you say it was 2 nights? Answer: I would not say anything about it. Question: will you say it was 1 night? Answer: I will say that I lived with him, and that is all I will say about it. Question: well, did you have any conversation with him when he was in Nauvoo? Answer: not rightly. Question: what do you mean by that? Answer: not privately. Question: well, did you have any conversation with him publicly or privately? Answer: yes, sir, I talked with him there in the house with the rest of the folks. Question: then you never had any private conversation with him? Answer: no, sir, I believe not. Question: did you have any courtship with him? Answer: no, sir. Question: will you say that time he was in Nauvoo only for a couple of weeks? Answer: yes, sir, something like that, I think. Question: well, then it was right after he came back that you married him? Answer: it was after he came back, when he brought his first wife home, and she died. Question: did he ever take you to his home? Answer: I believe I was there once. Question: how long did you stay? Answer: I could not tell. The next inconsistency is that Mary marries Wiliam Smith, who is later, in 1844, caught by Wilford Woodruff in spiritual wifery. So Mary is claiming that Wiliam Smith and her marriage was sanctioned by the authority of Joseph Smith, yet Wiliam Smith is caught in spiritual wifery by Wilford Woodruff. And this letter I will go ahead and read. Wilford Woodruff to President Young, December 3rd, 1844. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, December 3rd, 1844. President B. Young, beloved brother, impressed with a deep sense of duty toward God, toward you and the Quorum of the 12 and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I cannot leave the shores of America without unbosoming my feelings toward you more fully than I have hitherto done. There has been a fire in my bosom that I have tried to smother in my communications to you concerning affairs in the Eastern churches. I have done it fearing that you might think of me an accuser of my brethren, and that I should bring difficulty upon myself. But when I see an influence carrying death in all its march instead of life, yea, death like the upa tree, knowing the very vitals of the 12 and the church, laying the foundation of our cause, shall I hold my peace? No, God forbid. It is true I spoke plain in my former letters, but I feel to speak plainer still. There has been a time since the death of Joseph and Hiram, and still is, when we want men in the vineyard that are men of God, that will act wisely, build the kingdom, strengthen the weak, deal with mildness, act in concert with the council and the 12, and acknowledge the head to be where it is. But I must say that I do not believe Elders Wiliam Smith and G.J. Adams to be such men. I believe their whole influence has gone throughout the Eastern churches to gratify their own propensities, rob the churches for themselves, set themselves up as great men, to gain influence unto themselves, crushed every man that would not assist them to accomplish their end, ordain high priests, and exalt men that would go with them, and tried to the fullest extent to have the power of the Eastern churches in the hands of men that would give them the influence. I have some reason to believe they have spent hundreds of dollars of temple money for their own use, and I believe the prophet in New York has been an engine in their hands to accomplish the same end. The churches they have visited, are the worst off, and the Rigdon party have got more out of such churches than anywhere else. A principle that they call the spiritual wife doctrine is so instilled into the minds of most of the elders where they have been, that if anyone says anything against practicing or preaching it, they think he is an old granny and weak in the faith, and who don't know that such an order of things will explode any society to the four winds of heaven. I have been in the midst of a number of fires in this eastern land. I have had to contend against Rigdon and his party on the one hand, and stretch out my hand on the other side with the greatest wisdom I could get to try to save the church and the elders from that vortex of recklessness under which they seem to be plunging through the influence of William and Adams. And all these things the Quorum of the 12 have to hear. I feel bad about the Eastern churches. They are not out of danger. The New York church is in a bad situation. And to cop the climax, William wrote a piece accusing Winchester of having hand in murdering his brothers, and he has got out warrants for him, are about to take Brannan for printing it, and have taken Elder Grant for selling the papers, and he has been handed over to appear at court under $1,000 bond. And Adams has taken Winchester for slander, and all these cases will come up and be investigated to the fullest extent. The characters of Joseph and Hiram and the 12 will be made as black through falsehood as the lawyers can make them. And all hell is raked over to go testimony against the 12, and others, especially Wiliam Smith and Adams, and any imprudence that those men have been guilty of, or anyone else. The 12 have to learn it. William and Adams at times talk much about sustaining the 12, but I think it is for effect more than anything else. Wiliam Smith told Elder Grant that the 12 had not sustained him, nor had he risen through their influence, but on his own. Neither should be fool himself bound hereafter to defend the character of the 12, or B. Brother Grant thinks he was some excited when he made these remarks, accountable to that quorum, but he was led by visions and revelations for himself, and he said he and Adams were sworn friends, and that Adams' existence depended upon his. William has tried to gain the influence by saying that he was the last of the Smith family left that had laid the foundation of the church, etc. But by careful observations I can see things crowding out that is leading to apostasy and acting against our interest. God knows I don't want to injure Brother Smith, nor Brother Adams, for the sake of the Smith family. William said it possible. But I know that you ought to be apprised of things as they are, and this is the reason why I thus write. I beg of you, President Young, if you want to save the Eastern churches, to delegate some one of the 12 from Nauvoo that will act with you to come and take charge of them for a while, or some man besides William or Adams. Elder Grant tells me that William is about to visit the churches again through the East and New Hampshire, etc. I saw a letter from him stating that he had authorized elders to collect money for him to assist him in the lawsuits. I also beg of you not to send Elder Adams into the Eastern churches or anywhere where else until he can learn there is authority in this church unto whom he is amenable, and has got some authority, and as well as himself, for I believe him to be reckless, and do not believe he regards the authority of this church when he is out in the presence of the quorum of the 12. He is such a great apostle to the Gentiles that he is head and shoulders above all others. In those churches where they have held sway, I could get but little assistance to help us on our mission. If I could have borrowed the money, I would not have asked for $1 when I arrived in New York. We had only means enough to secure our passage, but nothing to get provisions with, and the New York church raised up $2.50 to help us, but they could help other men. I only spent the Sabbath with them. Came into Philadelphia to hold one meeting with Elder Grant. I found him just right with us with all his heart, and notwithstanding the former difficulties, the Philadelphia church is in the best order, or as good as one east of the mountains that Adams and Williams has visited, and it is in better state than ever has been since Winchester faction. Elder Grant is a man after my own heart. He is true in all things. His spirit is nor congenial with Adams and William, but he goes with Brigham and the 12. Has Elder Smith sent up the 150 for the temple from the Peterborough church, and money he has collected from the eastern churches, $20 or $25 from Vincent Shirtliff or Westfield? Elder Grant has asked me if he should leave Washington or anywhere else. I think he has saved the church in Philadelphia. I advised him to remain a little until the difficulties are a little more over. I give him counsel as you see fit. He will go where you say. Beloved brethren, I must close. I have written what I believe. Keep an eye upon Brother William and Adams. When I get to England, if men fight Joseph and Hiram that are dead, the 12 that are living sustain Rigdon and his party. Introduce and practice the spiritual wife doctrine. For either of these, they don't repent. I will cut them off. I will go with you. Give me such counsel as you think best. I will follow it. If I am doing wrong in anything, tell me of it. I will repent of it and leave it. Please take care of this letter. Let it not hurt me. My respects to the quorum and all who inquire. Yours in the love of God. W. Elder Young, the statements of Brother Woodruff I verily believe are just and true, and some of them I know are true to the letter. My views agree with his in all things. Yours, etc., J. M. Grant. The next inconsistency is that Mary does not confide her marriage to Wiliam Smith to Agnes. You would think if they were living together and that Agnes confided her marriage of to Joseph Smith to Mary, then Mary would also confide to Agnes. Question: You never told anybody that you were married to Wiliam B. Smith? Answer: Yes, sir. Question: Well, whom did you tell? Answer: Nobody but my brother. Question: But you did tell your brother about it? Answer: Yes, sir. The next inconsistency in Mary Frost's testimony is that in her testimony she says that Joseph Smith set up the marriage between her and Wiliam Smith, yet Joseph Smith and Hiram Smith are completely absent from the marriage and aren't told about it, and she keeps it a secret from them. Question: All this time you went by the name of Smith? Answer: I did not. Question: What name did you go by? Answer: I went by the name that I went to Nauvoo with. Question: You never went by the name of Smith there in Nauvoo? Answer: I never did. Question: He never introduced you as his wife to anybody? Answer: He never did. I don't remember that he ever did. Question: You never went out to church with him as his wife? Answer: I have gone out with him. Question: Did you go to church with him as his wife? Answer: No, sir. I never went to church with him, but I have gone to church at the same time that he did. Question: Were you ever introduced to Joseph Smith by Wiliam Smith as William's wife? Answer: I never was. Question: Joseph Smith made the bargain for you to marry him? Answer: Yes, sir. Question: And yet, after you were married, William did not introduce you to Joseph as his wife? Answer: I never was in Joseph's company that I know of with William after that. And then, in terms of who was at the wedding, question: In whose house were you married to Wiliam B. Smith? In her house? Question: In Don Carlos's house? Answer: Well, it was in her house, in Agnes Smith's house. Question: In the house of the widow of Don Carlos Smith? Answer: Yes, sir. Question: Was Agnes Smith present at the wedding between yourself and Wiliam B. Smith? Answer, no, sir, I don't think she was. Question, who was present besides you and Wiliam B. Smith? Answer, Brigham Young. Question, who else? Answer, I can't say. Question, was there anybody else present beside yourself, Wiliam B. Smith, and Brigham Young? Answer, I don't remember. Question, well, what is your best recollection on that point? Answer, I don't remember that there was anyone else at all. And then going on about who she told about the marriage. Question, you never told anybody that you were married to Wiliam B. Smith? Answer, yes, sir. Question, well, whom did you tell? Answer, nobody but my brother. Here is another inconsistency, that Mary cannot recollect the marriage ceremony between herself and William. That begs the question if she can remember, if she's properly remembering the conversation she had with Agnes, where she says that Agnes became Joseph Smith's wife. It says, question, well, I would like you to go on record positively as saying whether or not the marriage ceremony that was performed when you married West was the same as when you married Smith. Answer, well, I say I can't be positive. It might have been the same. Question, well, it might have been the Declaration of Independence that you went through there, but it wasn't, was it? Answer, no, sir. I can't answer these questions, for I don't remember these things. The final inconsistency in her testimony is that her story about the Revelation section 132 is that it contradicts Joseph Kingsbury's testimony. So, according to Mary Frost's testimony, Hiram Smith goes over to their house right after the revelation is made, and upon returning to retrieve it, discovers that it's gone, and that Emma has burned it up, but he forgets that Joseph Kingsbury had made a copy in her tale of events. So here is Joseph Kingsbury's testimony. It says, question, state what you know in regard to the revelation, if anything, concerning that doctrine of plural marriage. Answer, the revelation, Bishop Whitney got the revelation when we were married and presented it to me and wanted me to copy it. And so I went into a room by myself, a divided place, a place that was divided. I went off in there by myself and copied it. That is, I copied the revelation on plural marriage that he handed me. And just as I got through the copying of it, Hiram Smith came in and wanted the revelation. The original revelation was what he wanted. He came in to see how I got along with it. That is, Bishop Whitney did. And then he went out and told Hiram Smith that he would hand him the revelation in a few minutes, for I was not quite through copying of it. Well, when I got through making the copy, I took the one I had made myself and read it, and he took the original and read it at the same time to see if I had made any mistakes, and that it was correct. And when he had found that it was all correct, he took the one that I had made and went out to the door and handed it to Hiram Smith, who was outside of the door, ready to take it. And here is Mary Frost's testimony. Question, I asked you to state what you knew about the revelation that was given to Joseph Smith, or claimed to have been given to him prior to the time of his death on plural marriage. Answer, well, what I know about it is this. Hiram Smith came into our house. Question, well, just state whose house that was. Answer, I said he came into our house, but it was Agnes Smith's house, and she and I lived together. And he said that there was a revelation, and I told him that I would very much like to read the revelation that Joseph had received on plural marriage, and he said, I will go over there and get the revelation for you. Now, I don't know that he told us of it or not, but I think he did, at any rate. I know there was a revelation, for Joseph had told me before that time that there was, you know. Well, he said he would go over and get it for us to read, and he went over and came back in a little while, and he looked very sober, and I asked him, said I, what is the matter? What is the matter? Can't you get it? And he said, no, Emma took it out of Joseph's pocket last night and burned it, and so I did not get to read the revelation, although I was very anxious to do so. And then continuing, question, well, he came in to talk religion to you. Answer, no, sir, he did not. Question, well, what did he come in there for? Answer, he came in there just as any neighbor would to chat and talk with us and pass the time away, for we were very sociable there at that time, and yet Yes, I would fancy you were there from what I have heard, very much so. He came in there frequently, did he not? Answer, quite frequently. I remember of his being there several times, for I remember distinctly of his being there one time when he told us that Emma had come over to plural marriage. He told us that and said that she had sent for him to come and seal women to Joseph, and he had done so. Question, now you said that Hiram went over after the revelation for you to read. Answer, yes, sir. Question, when he got over there, he found out he could not get it, and he came back looking pale and sick, didn't he? Answer, he looked downcast. I don't know that he looked pale and sick, but he looked downcast. Question, did he look troubled? Answer, he felt very sorry that it was burned. Question, and they did not have any copy? Answer, yes, sir, they did. Question, were you sure of that? Answer, yes, sir. Question, well, did he say so? Answer, not then, he did not. Question, he said that Emma had burned it. Answer, yes, sir. Question, and he did not know that there was a copy then? Answer, no, sir. Question, and consequently he felt bad? Answer, he seemed to. Question, did not his looks show that he felt very bad? Answer, well, his looks showed that he felt sorry. Question, how do you know that Hiram afterwards knew that there was a copy? Answer, I don't know as he did know it, but I did. I did not know myself at the time that there was a copy of the Revelation, but I learned afterward that there was. It is likely, from the testimony of Mary Frost, that she was involved with spiritual wifery in Nauvoo. We see that she was involved with Wiliam Smith, who was caught in spiritual wifery, and that her marriage to him resembles a spiritual wife marriage. Her keeping a secret from Joseph, Agnes, and Hiram also seem to indicate that her marriage was a spiritual wife marriage. Since she was involved with the spiritual wife crowd, it's likely that she is much later in her life putting together events in a much different way. For example, in Nauvoo, it's possible that she heard Joseph Smith teaching about eternal marriage. At the same time, she's hearing from those people preaching spiritual wifery that Joseph Smith is teaching that you can have many wives in the eternities. Mary Frost then makes the connection and feels confident saying that Joseph Smith preached polygamy. It's possible she would have also been hearing the rumors about Joseph Smith and Agnes as used by those preaching spiritual wifery. Her statement on Joseph Smith and Agnes could be a purposeful oversight, or a misremembering. In conclusion, it is apparent that there was a rumor started about Agnes Smith and Joseph Smith in Nauvoo. Agnes Smith disputed that rumor at the time, and throughout her life, she preached against polygamy, and her daughter questioned whether or not Joseph Smith practiced it in the first place. It is likely that Mary Frost and John C. Bennet's testimony derives from the fact that spiritual wifery was being practiced and taught in Nauvoo, where people were saying that Joseph Smith was teaching spiritual wifery and that Agnes Smith was Joseph Smith's wife, a claim that was discussed in the Relief Society, a meeting which Agnes Smith participated in.